Hello everyone. In today's session, we'll see object-oriented concepts in C++. When I tell about object-oriented concepts in C++, we are speaking about encapsulation, abstraction, and inheritance along with polymorphism. So these are certain features of object-oriented concepts. So we illustrate these features using coding. So I'll share the screen where I can illustrate these concepts. We'll change the IDE to C++. Okay. To begin with, let me go for defining a class. So I'll define a class called student. Okay. So in order to brief about what do you mean by a class is actually a data type, a container which can hold data along with its properties. So data along with the methods. So attributes and methods can be together held in a single entity called as a class. So class acts as actually a binding entity which has data along with its operations. So this combination of attributes and the methods, which we call it as properties, are called as encapsulation, where the data and its operations are binded together as a single unit. Okay, so we'll see how do we actually bind the data and operations. Consider the class student. So certain attributes what student can have is, student can have a name, so we'll take it as a string. Age, which I'll consider as an integer, and then we'll go for double, which is CGP to store as average score. So we'll use double for CGP. As you can see here, now this particular student class is having three attributes. One is of type string, another is of type age, another is of type double. So I can also tell it's a heterogeneous collection of elements. Like we have structures in C, but the difference between structure and class is structure cannot have functions, and the default access specifier of the attributes in a structure is public, but here the default access specifier is private. Okay, so what do you mean by access specifier? Access specifier indicate what is the access features of these particular attributes, whether they are accessible within the class, whether they are accessible outside the class also. If you want these attributes to be known only to the particular class or to be accessed only through the particular class, we have to make them as private. If you want these attributes to be invoked outside the class, then we can make them as public. We also have another access specifier which is called as protected, which comes into an act in case of inheritance, where a child class can have access to the parent class attributes, but the outside world does not have access to it. So such particular attributes, we can keep it as protected, where only the child class and the class can have this access to its attributes. Okay. So we'll have certain functions defined here. So I'll just write a function void show student, where the function's job is to just display the details of a student. So let me write a cout statement here. Student details. Okay, and then we'll go for displaying the student details. The first one is name. So let me write name. And then the second attribute is age. So let me write age. I'll start the second attribute with the space. So I'll write \t. The third attribute which we're going to display is CGP. Okay. So it is CGP. And then finally, we'll insert a code to go to the next line. So endl. So there is a function. It's called as a member function of this particular class. So these are called as data members, and this is called as a member function. So we have written a member function to display the details of a student. We'll also have a member function to read the details of a student. So I can have void read student, which is used for reading the details of a student. Okay. So when I write void read student, you should have quotes to read three data members. One is name, another is age, and then CGPA. So we'll see how do we read that. So I'll write a dummy statement, printf statement, indicating that enter the student details. And in bracket, we'll indicate what kind of details we are accepting. Yes. As you know, for reading, we use cin. We use extraction operator for reading. So cin, the first attribute is name. And then the second one which we are reading is age. And the third one which we are reading is CGPA. Okay. So we have written a class student which is having 3 data members and 2 member functions, and all of them are actually private now. So how to make them public is I need to give the access specifier as public. So now all these data members and also these member functions are public data members of this particular class, or the public properties of this particular class. What do you mean by public properties? It's accessible outside also. So what I mean by accessible outside, main is not a function which is outside the class. So main is not a function belonging to the class. So it's an external entity to this particular class. But through main, I can actually invoke these features by creating an object of class student. So let me write student S1. Okay. Student S1 is actually the process of creating an object. So I've created an object. I can also call instantiation. It's also called as instantiation of class or object creation. I've created an object of class student. Now through this object, I can access the members of that particular class. For example, if I have to call the read function, I need to be calling s1 dot read student. And then we'll also go for displaying the details. So I'll write s1 dot show student. So these are the 2 functions which I've actually called through the object s1. So this is called invoking the properties of a class through the objects. And you can only invoke those properties of the class which are public from the external entities. And since we have made them as public, it can be accessed outside the class. Had it been private, these 2 lines would have generated error. So we'll see that error also after running this particular code, but it takes a custom input. So let me give the input here. In this particular IDE, we need to be giving custom input in the separate block. Okay, and then age, and then CGPA. Yes. So we'll be running this particular code. Okay, so if you can see here, there was a small mistake seen. Okay, so we have done a spelling mistake, I guess. So we'll quickly see. Yes, see the spelling mistake. I have given CGPA in caps, and everywhere I've used small case. So let me go for giving it in small case. Okay, so let the input be same. So I'll run the program once again. As you know that C++ is also case sensitive, similar to C. Okay, now we have run this particular program. So you can see the output being displayed. Okay, enter student details, name, age, and CGPA. Since this IDE is using a separate block for taking the input, normally if you do in static IDE like CodeBlocks or NetBeans, after this line, you should be given a chance to enter your input, and then you will see the output. But since I'm using an online platform called CodeChef, where the process of taking input is a little bit different, where they're actually accessing input through a separate block called custom input, and which is taken as our input. So you can see here, what is the input which I actually gave. And to that input, I'm actually getting the answer. So this is my output statement. And this line, along with this particular input, is my read function. So this is how I can actually call the member functions of a class, those which are declared as public in the access specifier field. Okay. So now just see here, I'll be removing this particular line. So as you know that by default, they'll be private. So now when I run this particular code, it throws me an error saying that I'm trying to access a private field. See, it's throwing me an error. It can be read here. See, your read student is declared private and you're trying to access them outside the class. So you can see here, void student read student is private within the concept. Then how did you read that in main? So that's the difference. The private members cannot be accessed outside the class from the external entity. Only the public members can be accessed. Fine. Okay. So I'll give it as public. So what we will do is we'll keep everything as public, but let me keep only CGPA as private. So what I'll do here is press enter key. Okay, I'll do private, and I'll just keep CGPA as private. Fine. Okay. Now this function will work. Why? Because read student and show student are public, but only CGPA is private. So see here, when I run this particular code, I'll be getting the answer. But from outside entity, that is through main, I can actually change the values of public members, that is your name and age, but I don't have access to CGPA. So we'll see here, I'll be changing s1 dot name is equal to, I have made it as Prakyat. Okay, and then I'll go for s1 dot age is equal to 27. Okay, and then I'll make s1 dot CGPA is equal to 9.9. So what I've done here is I've actually accessed the three data members. One is name, another is age, another is CGPA. But this particular CGPA line is actually an error because it's private member. So we'll run this program, and then this particular line you will get an error. And after running it successfully, we'll try to call s1 dot show student, so that we'll come to know what's the changed values. Fine. Now it throws an error because of s1 dot CGPA being accessed outside the class. It's taking time in compilation. Okay. So we have got the output. So we'll see what's the output here. For this particular program, which we have run. Okay. Run this once again. So you can see here, this particular line, as I was speaking, throws an error. Why? Because you can read the error properly here. CGPA is private within the context. It is not throwing error to any other values. It's only throwing errors in this line number 29. Why it is throwing an error? Why? Because CGPA is a private member I'm trying to access. Now, if I comment this particular line and run, the program will give me an output. Okay. So see the output which the program has given. So if you carefully see here, name and age have changed, but CGPA, it has taken the previous value itself. Why? Because CGPA could not be changed in main as it's a private member. So this is what is called access specifiers. So it's a private and public, two access specifiers we have seen here. So this is called as access specifiers. So one is private, another is public. We also have protected, which we'll be seeing in the concepts of inheritance. So these are access specifiers, and this is a data member. I'll include comments so that by looking into these, you can recall what was the concept. So this is a data member. Even this is a data member. Age is also a data member. And read student and show student are actually the member functions. Member function. So we have two member functions here. One is read student, another is show student. Okay. So I hope the basic concept of class is clear in this particular example. So what do you mean by a class? I'll just quickly recall. So class is actually a collection of data along with its operations. So what operations can be performed on that particular data? So we bind the data along with the operations. So this particular concept is called encapsulation, binding the data and its operations together into a single unit. So you can see here, student is a single unit, which is having data along with the operations which have to be performed on the data. So this particular concept is called as encapsulation in object orientation. Coming into abstraction, what do you mean by abstraction? So if I have to tell about abstractions, without object oriented concepts also, we are seeing abstraction. For example, in this header file, there are many inbuilt functions defined. If I have to take an example, cout. So if you see cout, I don't know how cout works, but I just know that if I give something like this in the cout, it will be printed on my screen. How it is printing, what's the code behind printing it on the screen, how is it contacting the screen. Screen is actually an IO, input output. So how is it doing that contact with the screen for printing? That is not known to us. We are just seeing the output, but the implementation part is hidden to us. This concept is called as abstraction, where I just see the output. I know what output I'm getting because of the input which I've given, but I don't know how I'm getting the output. So this particular concept is called abstraction. So what and how abstraction can be done in class, that is in object-oriented concepts. So if you can see here, CGP, if I've kept it as private, I'm hiding it from the outside world. So the outside world can only know its value through the member functions, but the outside world cannot edit it, cannot modify it. It can only access it through the member function of the class. So this satisfies the utilization of abstraction property in object orientation. So if I have to tell a definition of abstraction, is nothing but hiding certain implementation details and just showing the interface part. That's called as abstraction. And in C++ object orientation, we see abstraction through these access specifiers, especially using private and protected. However, public access specifier does not go for hiding a concept, does not go for hiding the data members or the member functions. It keeps it open to the external entities also. But public, private, not public, private and protected, they actually go for hiding the data. Private hides it from anyone other than the class, and protected only gives access to its child classes, that is the derived classes, but external entities does not have access to protected data also. So we'll see those protected concept in the upcoming concepts of inheritance. So I hope the first concept of encapsulation and abstraction was clear. I'll just comment it. Illustration of encapsulation and abstraction. Okay. So usually when we do coding or when we do projects in C++, there is a rule. As we know, data is very, very important. Data is very, very important when we come to digital concepts. Clear, right? Our data has to be protected. The integrity of data is very, very important. So always we try to keep our data private, so that only that particular class is having access specification to modify it. No other external entity have access to modify it. And if other entities have to modify it, they need to use the functions of that particular class to modify. So I'll quickly tell how we usually do coding by keeping the data private so as to maintain the integrity of the data. Okay, I'll share another screen to illustrate those concepts. So if I have a class, consider I have a class A, fine. Okay, so if I have a class A and consider I'm having an integer variable there. So if you can see here, int A is one of a data member of class A. I'm kept as private. How did I know I kept it as private? Because by default, if I don't specify any access specifier, it takes private. In structures in C, it takes public as a default value. In class, it takes private as a default access specifier. So now what I'll do is, I have kept my data as private, as you can see here, but I'll use two functions to give value to that particular data and get the value of that particular data. So this particular concept, this particular functions which I'm using here are called as getters and setters. So these functions are called as getters and setters. So see here, if I have to get a value for that particular A, so what I'll do is I'll do void get a. I'll use void get a and then int x. I'll just make a is equal to x. So simple function which is taking an argument, and that argument is actually given to a. And then we'll see setter function. So we'll write setter. So we can usually write getters and setters. So we can write getter, setter. Okay. I've changed the name. Actually, this should be setter, setting the value for a. And then this should be getter, getting what is the value of a. So since I'm getting what's the value of a, and since a is an integer, this particular function should return me an integer. So that's why I've written it as integer. So I'll write return a. So now if you see this particular class carefully, the data is kept private. The data has been kept private. Only thing is we have certain member functions. We call them as getters and setters. Automatically in some modern IDEs, whenever you design a class, in the edit option, you have a button to click, which automatically creates getters and setters based on your data members. If you have 2 data members, it generates 2 setters and 2 getters. If you have 3 data members, it generates 3 setters and 3 getters. But now since I have only 1 data member, I've kept it as private and I've used a getter and setter function to initialize the data member and also to get the value of the data member. Now, how will I have access to that particular data member? So to create access to that data member, I need to be creating an object. So I've written a1. But you know that I cannot write a1 dot a is equal to 3. It throws an error. Why? Because it's a private member. Correct? So we'll write error because it's private member. Okay, so we'll quickly run and we'll see the error once again to confirm our topic. So you can see our error because it's a private member. So see the error, the definition, what it is telling. The A which belongs to your capital A is a class name is private within the context. So you're trying to access a private member. That's why it's throwing an error. So I cannot do this way for giving it a value. So how can I do that? What I'll do here is I'll use getter and setter. So I'll use setter A and I'll be passing 3. Fine, now I have to see what is the output of it. So what I'll do, I'll write a cout statement and I'll write a1 dot getter A. That's it. So what setter will do, whatever value you have passed, it gives it to A. That is an attribute of your class. And whatever value you have actually assigned it to your A through setter, that we are reading it through the getter. So we'll run this particular code. So you can see here, I'm getting the output 3. So this way of coding, we call it as getters and setter member functions in order to access the private data members of a class. Without giving direct access to the external entity, we are using getters and setter functions, which are kept as public. And since they are kept as public, they can be accessed from an external entity and they are used to access the values of private members. So this 2 concepts which we have seen in both examples of the screen which I have actually shared illustrate the concepts of encapsulation and abstraction in C++. Moving forward, we'll see the concepts of inheritance and polymorphism. Fine? Okay. So I'll share another screen where we'll go for the concept of inheritance. So, okay. What do you mean by inheritance? Inheritance means inheriting the features of a class. I'm obtaining the features of a class which is already present for code reusability. For example, consider I have a class called person. I have a class called person, and let me keep certain public features in the person. So let me have a name, which is a string, because each person should have a name. So let me keep it as a name. And you know that each person has an age. So let me keep it as int age. So I have a class called person, which is having name and then age. 2 public members I'm having. That's it. I'll end the class. Okay. Now I want a class called student. So what are the details what student is having? Student is also having public. Okay, we'll keep the member. Student also has a name, so string name I'll write. Student is also having age, so I'll write int age. And then student can have an extra CGPA I'll consider. So CGPA I'll keep it as double. I can use float also, but let me keep it as double. So this is a way I have defined student class. But if you see here, there are two data members which are same as that of a person. And every student, we know that has to be a person, has to be an individual. Clear? So instead of writing it once again, instead of redundancy, what I can do is I'll ask my student to take the features of person, and what extra features it wants, it can only define that. So this particular concept is called as inheritance. So how will I do that in C++? How can I do that is I'll write colon. So how I am taking the access? I'm taking the access as public. So we'll see what you mean by that. Public. And then I should write the name of the class. So what's the name of the class? Person. So then I don't want these two features. So what happened now is it is called inheritance concept in your C++. I'm inheriting the features of person. So whenever I have written it as public person, I'm taking all the features, including the member functions also. If it is having some member functions, including the member functions also, I'm taking all the features of the class person, and my student is having extra features CGPA. Okay. So let me also include a constructor of a class person. So you know what you mean by a constructor. A constructor is a member function which is having same name as that of a class. It can take arguments. It can take arguments. So what I'll do here is for my constructor, I'll take two arguments. One is a string n, another is int a. And whatever I'm passing through the constructor, I'll give it to name and age. N, and my age is equal to a. So constructors are those member functions which are automatically called when an object is created. And what are the rules of a constructor? A constructor should have the same name as that of a class. It should not have a return type, but it can take arguments. It can take arguments. So if you see here, I've written a constructor of class person. Fine. Okay, and a parameterized constructor we call. Clear, right? What do you mean by parameterized constructor? If it takes certain arguments, we call it as parameterized. And you can see here it is taking two arguments. One is a string, another is a number, which is for age. Okay. And in this particular concept, if you see here, double CGPA, it is just taking one CGPA. So what I can do here is I'll call student. I'll call the student constructor. Okay. And since student is having only CGPA to be taken here, so what I'll do here is I'll use double. I'll call double, and then I'll give C for CGPA, and then I'll be passing here CGPA is equal to C. So I've written a constructor for my class student also. Fine. Okay. So see here, when now what will I do is I'll just create an object of class student. So student S1. I've created an object of class student. I've not created anything. I've just created an object of class student, that is S1. So now what I'll do here is I'll define a member function in student for showing the details of it. So I'll write void show student. I'll just write void show. So I'll write the details here. See out show of student. I'm writing these statements so that we'll understand the output. End L. Fine. Okay. What and all things I have to display? So I'll go for displaying see out. Student has a name. So I'll write name. Okay. and then student has age, student has age, age, and then student has CGPA slash T CGPA. Right. Okay. So if you see here, name and age does not belong to class student, but still I have written it here. Why? Because student has derived the features of person. So whatever features the person is having, all the public and protected features of that particular class person will come to the class student. Let me repeat it. Whenever I have deriving a particular class, all the public and protected features get derived, inherited along with private also, but I can only access the public and protected features of my superclass. So now the class person is called as a superclass, class student is called as a subclass. A subclass is one which inherits the features of superclass. So when it inherits the features, it inherits all the features of the superclass, but only public and protected members are accessible. But now since all of them are public here, all the functions are actually accessible. So see here, I've just created a object of student. So I'll be writing s1 dot show. It is small letter show. So I'll write show. Okay. So did we pass any value? So if you can see here, the constructor is taking one argument, at least one argument. So I'll be passing one argument, that is CGPA 9.9. So I'll run this particular code. Okay. See here. There are a couple of errors which is actually generated. Fine. So there are a couple of errors which is actually generated. So we'll see how to resolve those errors. Fine. Okay. So we need to be quickly seeing what are the compile time errors which are actually generated in this particular code. So we'll see the errors, what it is actually displaying. So see the mistake here. It is telling that I have a constructor of person. I have a constructor for person. So if you can see here, there is a constructor for person which takes arguments, And since I'm calling the derived class, it automatically calls the parent class. But when it is calling parent class, I'm not passing any arguments to the constructor. So what I'll do is, to resolve it, I'll just default the values for this parent class constructor, as I'll give you the values here. So this is just, I'm passing the default values. So now let me run this particular code. So you can see here, it has got successfully executed. What I did, what was it doing is, when I call a particular object of the student class, since student has derived the class person, it automatically calls the constructor of class person. And if you see the constructor of class person, earlier it was taking two arguments, but nowhere in my code I've actually passed arguments. So what did I do? I defaulted the values in that particular arguments, so that whenever I'm not passing any arguments to this particular constructor, it takes the arguments wiki and 27. And that's why it has got executed. And how did 9.9 come? Because that is what we have passed in our main. And this 9.9 is because of this particular constructor student. So this is what is a concept of inheritance. To clearly understand the concept of inheritance, what I'll do here is, I'll make this particular concept as protected. I'll keep this as protected. So if you can see here, protected. I've used the access specifier as protected. So what do you mean by protected? If I tell someone as protected, only the child class can have access to it. Fine. Okay. So now let me run this program. Pretty much I'm getting the same output. So you can see here, it is the same output. So what is the difference? Where do I find the difference? So if I have to find the difference, so let me show the difference here. I'll keep it as public and run once, and then I'll keep it as private and run once. So I've kept it as public, and what I'm doing here is, I'm making s1 dot name is equal to Prakhyat, and then I'm making s1 dot age is equal to 27. Okay, and then I'm changing S1 dot CGPA is equal to 9.7. Okay, now I'll call S1 dot show. See here carefully. From main, I'm trying to change the values of CGPA, name, and AGPA, age. So what is name? It's actually a private member of not student class, a person class, but I can access it through student. Why? Because student has inherited the person class. Age, these two are actually the members of person class, but I'm accessing them through student because student has inherited them. And CGPA is actually a private member of public member of student class. So now I'm doing show. So if you see here, if I write show, it shows me the answer. It tells Prakyat 27 and then 9.7. Okay, one semicolon I have missed, so I'll just put the semicolon here. Okay, so if you can see here, I have passed these three arguments. So I've changed the value. So you can see here Prakyat, age, and then 9.7. Okay, now see the difference. I'm just changing my public to protected. So when it was public, it was allowing me to change the values in main, but I've now done protected and I'm trying to change the values. I've done protected, I'm trying to change the values. So when I run this, I'll get a error. So see the error. Name was protected. So from main, I cannot access it. Even age was protected. So I cannot access it. So the protected members cannot be accessed from the external entity. It can only be accessed from its child class. So now CGPA will not give me any error. So if I run this particular code, I'll be getting wiki 27 and 9.7. So you can see here, because 9.7 is an updated value because of this particular line number 33. And then these two are default values of the constructor of person class. But in my child class, I can actually change the values. For example, if you see here, void show is there. So before printing, inside show, I can actually make name is equal to change dial, right? And then age is equal to newborn, I'll write. So that we'll understand that it is changed inside the student. So if you can see here, I'm changing the name and age inside student. And I can do that. Why? Because name and age are protected. Name and age are not private. Protected members can be accessed within the child class, but I cannot do that here. I cannot do that in main. Why? Because in main, I can only access the public members of a class if main is an external entity. And since main is an external entity, it cannot have access to the protected and private members. Clear? Okay. So now let me go for running show. Same code I'll run once again. Okay, age I've given newborn, but age is actually an integer, so it is throwing an error. So just let me correct it. So let me give it as 1. Understand the errors as soon as they are generated. Okay, so if you can see here, I've changed it. My name has come as changed, my age has come as 1, and I've got 9.7. This is how I can actually do it. This is how I can actually change it. Fine. So what did I do? I actually changed the values of the protected members inside the child class, inside the subclass, not inside the superclass. Okay. Now we'll see one more concept. What happens if I keep it as private? What happens if I keep them as private? Clear, right? I've kept them as private. Now it throws error. Where it throws error? It throws error here itself, name and age, because I cannot access private members. It throws errors in these 3 lines. So we'll run and we'll see. So 25, 26, 27 should throw me an error. So we'll see whether it is throwing an error. Yes. So see here, it's private. First of all, I'm trying to access the private members. So 25, 26 also has to throw me an error. Yes. And then 27 also has to throw me an error. Why? Because it's only telling here. See, if you listen and carefully look into these particular errors, it only tells there are private members which you're trying to access. So even child class cannot have access to private members. Child class cannot have access to private members. So if I comment these lines, so if I comment these two lines, okay. So I'll be commenting these two lines and I'll be running. Okay, so see here. It is trying to call the constructor, and in the constructor, I'm trying to call the members. I'm trying to call the members. And since they are private, I cannot do that because I cannot pass values to them because they are private members. It cannot be accessed through the child class. So this was actually the concept of access specifiers and inheritance. And what inheritance we have seen here now is actually a single level inheritance. We call it as single inheritance. We'll see another example, how automatically the constructors get called. Okay. We'll see it. We'll change the IDE to C++. Okay. I'll just change the brightness of the screen so that we can have a clear screen here. I think the screen is a bit blur. So let me change the brightness of the screen. Okay. Yes. Okay. See the classes here. Let me have a class A. A class A. Okay. I'll not write anything else here. I'll just write public. Just a constructor of A where it is not having any data member. I've just kept it as blank. I'll just write a cout statement saying that constructor of A. That's it. I've written it as constructor of A. To show what was wrong in the previous program, I'm taking a simple example of inheritance, which was showing an error when it was directly calling an object of parent class through the child class. So let me have a child class now. I'll write it as B, which inherits public A. Fine. Okay. And then here also in the public section, we'll have a default constructor. So B, it's not having any other statements or any data members, just a name of the constructor will write. So constructor of class A. So I'll just write constructor of class A is over. So constructor of class B, let me give an endl so that it comes to next line automatically. Okay. So if you see here, there are two classes. One is class A, another is class B. Class B actually inherits the features of A, but there are no much features in A. A has only one constructor. So class B can inherit that particular constructor. So if you see here, if I create B, B1. So as you know that whenever I create an object of a particular class, the constructor gets called automatically. And it calls its parent class constructor. So we'll see just the single line of object creation. How does it show me the output? So you can see here, it prints constructor of B and constructor of A both. So you can see here, I never created an object of A, but automatically it was called. So what was happening? What did I do? So what it actually do is whenever we create an object of child class, so the child class constructor will automatically first call the parent class default constructor. So this is called default constructor, which does not take any argument. So I'll write it in the comment here. Default constructor. So you can see here. So first the default constructor of the parent class is called, and then the next line in its constructor, that is constructor of B, is printed. So because of this, in the previous example, since the data members were private, and trying to access the constructor through child class was throwing me an error. So that was the error which was actually coming here. So which was telling here that error is in the constructor call. Why? Because the members are private and I'm trying to call the constructor through the class child, that is through the child class student. So that was actually an error here. So now we have understood what is actually the problem. Fine. Okay. We'll further move on to the concepts of different kinds of inheritance. So we'll see what are the different kinds of inheritance which are actually available. Okay. So this is single level of inheritance which we have seen. There are different kinds of inheritance. So we'll see all the kinds of inheritance. We'll go to another screen where I can show you different kinds of inheritance. We'll select advanced C++. Sorry. Yes. Single inheritance means one particular class is inheriting a feature of another class, another single class. Okay, we'll see multi-level inheritance now. Fine. So we'll see now multi-level inheritance. So what do you mean by multi-level inheritance? As the name only suggests, it's not single level of inheritance. There are multiple levels of inheritance. What happens is the features of A are inherited by B and the features of B are inherited by C. So this particular concept is called as multi-level inheritance. So I've written it. This is how we can actually write it. So I'll comment it. Okay. So what is multiple level inheritance? You can see here, there is a class A and the class B takes the features of A, inherits the features of A. Class C inherits the features of B, which indicates that class C by default takes the features of A, indirectly takes the features of A. So we'll see, we'll illustrate that and we'll run the particular concept. So let me write class A Okay. And then to illustrate multiple inheritance, I'll just write one constructor in class a default constructor. And then one cout statement here will be writing that it is a constructor of A. So I'll write constructor of A. And then we'll go for end. So if you can see here, there is a class called A, which is having just one data member function, sorry, that is your constructor, a default constructor. So now we'll create class B. Okay, so in the class B, what we will do is we'll inherit class A. So we'll inherit it as public A. Okay, and then I'll in class B, I'll have a constructor for B, and I'll just print a statement saying that it is constructor of B. The same way, I'll have class C. Okay, so what class C should do? Class C should inherit B, public B. And then I'll just have a constructor in C that is to print saying that it is a constructor of C. So if you see the code here, clearly, very simple code. There are three classes, A, B, and C. A is a class, independent class, which does not inherit from anyone. And it is having one member function that is a default constructor. And class B is inheriting the features of A. And it is public inheritance. What do you mean by that is all the properties of this particular A are considered as public in B, or as it is considered in B. If I write protected, all the public and protected members of A will be as protected in B. If I write private, all the public and protected members of A will act as private in B. So I can actually change this access specifier of inheritance to public, protected, or private. So we'll see that in the upcoming examples. Okay. So now I have three classes. So what I'll do here is the last child, that is C, I'll just create a constructor of it. So when I create a construct object of it, it calls the constructor. So C. But before running C, it calls B because it has inherited B. So it goes to B, and in B's constructor, before running the constructor, it calls A. Why? Because B has inherited A. So the output will be constructor of A, constructor of B, constructor of C. So we'll run and we'll see whether we are getting that in the same order. Yes, so you can see here, though I have written only object creation of C, sorry. So object invoked of C, but I have the constructors of B and A called. This proves that C, whenever it inherits the features of B, it takes all the features of B, and in that there is a constructor also. The constructor gets automatically called. So before the C complete C get executed, it first calls its parent class constructor. So its parent class constructor, since it is also inheriting from A, it calls its parent class, that is A's constructor. So in this fashion, we have the output, that is constructor of A, B, and then C. Okay, so if A would have had a feature, for example, if A would have had int AL, right? Int A, and then B would have had a data member, that is B. So I'll write int B, and then C would have had another data member C, that is int C. Now A is accessible from B also, A is accessible from C also. So we'll see whether it is true. So what I'll do here is I'll write a show function in C. So I'll write void show, okay, and then I'll write cout show of C. I'm writing multiple print statements so that our output is clearly understood through the help of these statements. So cout, I'll write A, what's the value, that is A, and then \t B, what is the value, and then C. Okay, and then in main I'll call c1 dot show, and before printing the values of ABC, let me change the values. A is equal to 1, B is equal to 2, and then C is equal to 3. So if you can see here, only C was the member of class C, but I am accessing B also. Why? Because C has inherited the features of B. So what B has the small b. So that also is being accessed here. But I'm accessing A also. But class C does not inherit A, but it inherits B, and B inherits A. So that's why class C indirectly inherits the features of A also. So we'll run this particular code now. So you will get A1, B2, C3. So you can see here A1, B2, and C3. So this proves that it is like if, for example, B takes the features of A, accesses all the features of A, inherits the features of A, C inherits the features of both B and A. And how did it get the features of A? It gets indirectly through B. So this is called multi-level inheritance. So there are 3 levels of inheritance. Fine. Okay. So we'll go for the next kind of inheritance, that is called as multiple inheritance. Okay. So I'll change the IDE. I'll change it to C++. Sorry, text. Yes. What do you mean by multiple inheritance? What do you mean by multiple inheritance is, okay, I'll write the definition through quotes. So multiple inheritance, where the features of A are taken by C, and there is another class B, its features are also taken by C. So what do you mean by this? There is a class called C which takes features of A also, which takes features of B also. So C is having features of both A and B. So this kind of inheritance is called as multiple inheritance. Means one particular class is taking the features of many other classes. So we'll see how is it. So we'll write class A. Okay. And then let me write a member here, public in A. Okay. And then I'll call constructor also so that we'll come to know the invocation also. I'll just write cout constructor of A and L. Okay. So simple class A I have taken, which is having one data member, which is written as small case A, and it is having a constructor to just print that it is a constructor. Similarly, we'll write class B. So I'll copy the codes and then I'll just change the names of it. Okay. So class B. So in B, let me have one particular variable data member, that is B, and then the constructor of B should just print a statement saying that this constructor of B. Okay. Yes. And then I'll go for C. So now we'll go for C. C will have, I'll take a feature called C. And then a constructor of CL, right? Now, C actually inherits the features of both A and B. So what I'll do here is I'll write C, I'll write public A, comma, public B. So this is how I can have multiple inheritance. So what it line says is C inherits the features of both A and B. So C inherits features of both A and B. So if I write a show function in C, void show. So here I'll be writing cout show of C, and let me change the values of A and B. So A is equal to 1, B is equal to 2, C is equal to 3, and then I'll display the values cout A is A, and then B is B, and then C. Right, and L, and then we'll separate them with the space. So I'll write \T also before printing. Okay, this much is clear. So we'll run the output and see. So see carefully here. I have a class A, which is an independent class. So you can see here, there is a class A, which is an independent class, which is just having one data member, small case A, which is an integer, and one constructor. Same way, class B is also having a data member, small b, which is an integer, and a constructor. But class C inherits the features of A also, B also. So it has access to this B also, and it has access to the small case A also, along with the constructor. So what happens is, first, since I've inherited the class A, constructor of class A will be called through the object of C, and then constructor of B. So let me create just an object of C and then run this program and show you. It tells constructor of A, constructor of B, and then C. So you can see here, constructor of A, constructor of B, and then constructor of C. But if I change the order of inheritance, so what I'll do is I'll first write here B, and then I'll write A. Now the output will change as constructor of B, constructor of A, and then constructor of C. See here, B, A, and C. So how you inherited, that depends on the order what we have written it here. So let me now keep the order as same, A and A first, and then B second. And let me call show of C. So how will I call show of C? C1 dot show. It's a small case show. Yes. Okay. So I should be able to print a equal to 1, b equal to 2, and c is equal to 3. So constructor of A, constructor of B, constructor of C, and then A equal to 1, B equal to 2, and C equal to 3. So this is called multiple inheritance, where one class takes the features of more than one another superclass. So you can see here, C is actually a child class which takes the features of both A as well as B. So this particular kind of inheritance, we call it as multiple inheritance. Okay. We have another kind of inheritance which is called as hierarchical inheritance. So we'll see that in the next screen. What do you mean by hierarchical inheritance? Okay. So let me choose the compiler of C++. Last one is hierarchical. Okay. Inheritance. So what do you mean by hierarchical inheritance? It's in the form of a tree where there will be a class A which is inherited by class B, and the same class A is inherited by class C. So this is called hierarchical inheritance, where one class is inherited by many other classes. So it's like a branch of a tree where one parent class will be there and many of the other classes will be there in the form of a branches. Fine. Okay, so we'll see how do we write this particular piece of code. So let me copy the codes from the previous itself so that we'll avoid time consumed there. Okay. So you can see here I have a class A and I have a class B which inherits A. So I can write it as public A. And then I have class C which does not inherit B, which inherits A. C inherits features of A. A. And then here also we can write B inherits features of A. Yes. So you can see here. So in the show of C, I cannot have B. This throws an error. Why? Because B is not accessible from C. Fine. Okay. Only A and C are accessible. So we'll just print A and C. Okay. So we'll just print A and C in C because only the small c, which is actually a member of the class C, and a small a, which is a member of class A, are accessible. B is not accessible because C does not inherit the features of B. Fine. Okay. So we'll see that here. Okay. I'll create here B. I'll create a show function in B also. So we'll write void show. So what will we do in show of B is we'll do the same concept of what we did in C. We're trying to access both A and B. So we'll write C out show of B, and then we'll print A and B. B is equal to 2 we'll give, so that the difference in values will make us understand the output clearly. I cannot print C here because B does not inherit C. B only inherits A. Okay, so in main now we'll create objects. So what I'll do here is I'll just create an object of C1, and we'll just run and we'll see what is it doing here. So it will call parent class, A's constructor and C's constructor. So only two lines will be getting printed, constructor of A and constructor of C. Now if I call C1.show, it has accessed only two data members, that is A and C. So those two will be getting run. So you can see here A and C. Same way, if I create an object of class B, so B B1, if I create, and if I just run that, it will tell constructor of A and constructor of B. Yes, so you can see here constructor of A and constructor of B. The above lines are actually the output of these two. But after I write B equal to B1, I just got constructor of A and constructor of B. Now if I write B1 dot show, it only displays A and B because B is having access to A and B is having access to B's members. That's it. Okay, so you can see here A and. So this was actually the concept of hierarchical inheritance. What do you mean by hierarchical inheritance? Multiple classes inherit from a same parent class. So here parent class is same. Which is a parent class? A. What are the child classes? B and C. So it forms actually a tree-like structure. It forms a tree-like structure where one parent class will be sitting here and then you have separate branches coming down. So which is nothing but your child classes. Fine. Okay. So we also have a concept of hybrid inheritance. What do you mean by hybrid inheritance? The meaning of hybrid inheritance is when you combine the previous said inheritances, multiple inheritances, multi-level inheritances, hierarchical inheritances, and single inheritance. When you combine all of them, when more than two kinds of inheritance are being used in a single program, we call such kind of programming as programming through hybrid inheritance. Fine. Okay. For example, one example of hybrid inheritance, what I can give is A is inherited from B, and then A is also inherited by C, and there is a class D which inherits from B and C. There is a class D which inherits from both B and C. So this is one example of hybrid inheritance. What happened? Class A is inherited by B and C. So it is a hierarchical inheritance. And if you see, D inherits from both B and C. So that is multiple inheritance. So this is a multiple inheritance and this is a hierarchical inheritance. So I'll write here. This is hierarchical inheritance, and this is what I was speaking about on multiple inheritance. How do I know multiple inheritance? Because single class D takes the features of both C and B. And how do I know hierarchical? Because A has given its features to both C and B. So hierarchical and multiple inheritance are like opposite to each other. How they're opposite to each other? Where one class has been giving features to two other classes, where one class is taking the feature of two other classes. Okay, we'll code this particular kind of inheritance. So what I'll do here is I'll take the same concepts here, whatever we had. Fine. Okay, so first it is hierarchical inheritance because B and C actually inherits from A. So we'll write that. Okay, so we'll copy the same piece of code and we'll change accordingly. So now I don't want constructor to be illustrated. So what I'll do is I'll remove constructor. Okay. And then I'll be writing just show. So void show. Okay. What I'll do here is I'll just change the value of A to 1 and then I'll print the value of A. So I'll just write show A and then I'll be writing A and then fine. Same way I'll be writing show for B also. I'll not use any constructor in B. So instead of A, let me go for B and then I'll be printing B. Okay. In C also I'll do the same procedure. I'll just have a show function in C, and what that show function does is just changing the value of your C and then printing the value of C. Okay, so just changed it, and we'll change the values also. C will make it as 3, then B will make it as, A will make it as 1, and so it is C will make it as B, and it is 2. There also will change it to B. Okay, and then here it is C, so we'll change it to C, and we'll keep it as 3. So we'll print C and C. Okay, simple. What I have class A, and B inherits from A. C also inherits from A. So successfully we have written till here. We have written till here. Now we should have a class D which inherits from both B and C. So what I'll have another class D. So class D which inherits from B, and also it inherits from C. It inherits from B also, it inherits from C also. And let me have one data member here. So we'll have int D here. Okay, and then I'll write void show. I'll write void show. In this show, I'll just print it is a D value. So I'll print D value here in this particular show. Yes. And then I'll change the D value inside show itself. So I'll make it as 4. And to understand it is a show of D, let me include one statement everywhere. So telling that it is a show of which particular class. So I'll write show of D. Okay, backslash n also I can use instead of endl. So everywhere in show, I'll be writing whose show function I'm actually executing. So show of D is over. Now this is show of C. Same way in B also, we'll write whose show we are actually illustrating. So I'll write show of B, and then in A also we'll write down show of A. Okay. So we have my classes written here based on this particular line. So clearly look into this line and this particular code where B and C inherit from A. So that is what we have written. Class B inherits from A and class C inherits from A. And then we have D which is inheriting from both B and C. So that's why we have class D which inherits from both B and C. No constructors we have used, we have show functions. And all are having the same name called as show. This particular concept is called polymorphism, where when I call, it's a overriding. We call this kind of polymorphism as overriding. So what happens is if I write d1 dot d1 if I write, okay, so to differentiate, so let me write it as show of d, so that I'll tell the polymorphism concept a little bit later. So let me write show of C, let me write this as show B, and let me write this as show A. Now there is no polymorphism concept because all are having different name. I've written show A, show B, show C, show and D. Okay, so d1 I've written, and I've written d1 dot show D. That's it. I've written show D. So if you can see here, I've written just show D, and I'll run this particular code. Okay, so see here. Okay. Okay, I've missed a semicolon in class D, so that's why it is giving an error. So we'll clear that particular semicolon error. Yes, I'm telling show of D is equal to 4. Clear? Okay. So very simple concept. I can also call d1 dot show C, because D inherits the features of C also, and I can also call d1 dot show B. Okay. So both of them are correct. show C and show B. I'm getting the output now. I'll be getting the output. So we'll see. Yes. So see here, show of C and show of B. But the problem comes because the compiler gets confused now. So show A. As you can see, D does not inherit A, but B and C both inherit A. So when I write in the main show A, it is confused whether I have to show A through class B or through class C, because both B and C inherit A. So what happens is, if I write like this, it throws an error. So if you see here, it gives me an error because my compiler is in a confused state, ambiguous state. So you can see here, confusion state. Why confusion? Show A is actually belonging to A, but I can access. Why? Because D actually inherits B and C, and both B and C are inheriting A. So now D is confused whether I have to get the A's features through B or should I get the features of A through A. So how will I solve this particular problem is, I just have to write here, now take the value through B. So I should write B scope and run. Now, if you see, I'm getting the output, show of A is equal to 1. So either I can tell that my D, you go through B and take A, or I can also tell my D, you go through C and take A. You can see here, I can write show, both are correct. So using scope resolution operator, I'm solving that particular error. Very, very important error when it comes to inheritance. So you can see a show of A is getting printed twice. One is because of B class, another is because of C class. So this is called as hybrid inheritance and the error involved in hybrid inheritance. Very difficult to solve errors when it comes to hybrid inheritance. As you can see here, why D was getting confused? Because it can get the features of A through B also, through C also. So the compiler was confused. Should I go through B or should I go through C? So what I reduce the compiler's confusion and saying that now in this show you go through B and in this show you go through C. One more way of avoiding this confusion is I should use the concept of virtual functions. I should use the concept of virtual. So when I am inheriting the B and C, what I'll do here is I'll tell B virtual A. So a new keyword also you are actually encountering here, virtual keyword. So I'll be writing virtual. Okay. So if I write virtual keyword, it's telling my computer to remove the ambiguity and take any of its option of choice path. So now if I write, so see the D1 dot show A. See, I'm getting the answer. No ambiguity. Previously, when I write d1.show A, it was giving error. Why? Because it doesn't know whether I have to go through B or go through C. Now, since I've used a concept of virtual, you can see here in B and C, I've used a concept of virtual. What do you mean by virtual is compiler is given a choice of either to choose through B or to go through C. So that is what is actually the illustration of keyword virtual also. Very, very important keyword when it comes to the errors of solving hybrid inheritance. So there are two ways of solving the error. So this can be used when B and C class use virtual keyword for inheritance of A, and either using scope resolution operator. Second option, using scope resolution operator. Okay. So I'll come back to this error once again. Those who have not missed it or not listened it. See here, I have d1.show A. Show A is actually a function belonging to A. but D does not have directly access to A. But A is being accessed through B and C. So both are having access to A. Now my D is confused. Should I take a path from B or should I take a path from C? To avoid confusion, I should make both B and C inherit the A through virtual keyword. So that if there is some confusions arising on through which one I should go to A, compiler is having an option of choosing any path. Or I have to give scope resolution operator. So now scope resolution operator works fine. So now we'll see without virtual, will it give me the answer? It will not give me the answer. So once again, we'll see whether it is giving the answer or not. So I've removed the virtual keyword. So you can see here, I've removed virtual keyword from both B and C. Now if I run, it throws an error. Ambiguity. Because D doesn't know, see you can see here, it is ambiguity. Ambiguous because D doesn't know, should I have to use show of A through B or should I have to go through C? So that's why it was giving me an error. Fine. Okay, how do I solve the error? I have to inherit A from B using virtual concept. Now if I run this, it doesn't throw any error. Okay, you can see here, it doesn't throw any error. So this is what is the concept of hybrid inheritance and the error involved in it. I've actually told you about the error also, so that in future, if you're using hybrid inheritance, you don't encounter these kinds of errors. Very important and a little bit difficult to solve when it comes to the first attempt of the error. If you don't know the concept, actually what is the confusion for the compiler? Because sometimes we end up in creating confusions in the mind of compiler, especially when there are same names and when there are same functions to be used through two different routes. Okay, so this completes the concept of inheritance, encapsulation, and abstraction. So we'll see the last simple concept, which is polymorphism. So there are different kinds of polymorphism in C++. So we'll see all the kinds of polymorphism in C++. Okay, coming to the first kind. So when I tell about polymorphism, what do you mean by polymorphism? A same entity behaving differently in different situations or different places is called as a polymorphism. So there are different kinds of polymorphism. You can go for function overloading. You can go for function overriding or operator overloading. So all these are actually called as polymorphism in C. Operator overloading. So we'll see one example of each of them. What do you mean by that? Coming to the first one, that is function overloading. Consider I have a function void function, and then I'll be just writing okay, so I'll be writing here, I have int a, writing a is equal to 1, cout a, I'll print the value of a and I'll write, and then I'll be writing and L. So this is of one kind, one function which I've written. Clear? Okay. So what I'll do here is I'll write another function with the same name, void function with the same name, but I'll take one argument x. And then I have one value int a is equal to x. I'll print the value of a. Okay, I have to print the value of a. So I'll be printing the value of a here also. Sorry. Okay. From main, what I'll do is I'll call both the functions. What I'll do here is I'll write function, I'll call function, and then 9. This concept is called function overloading. So why we call overloading is function with same name but different signatures. What do you mean by signatures? Signatures can be your return types, but here the signatures are also same with respect to return type, or it can be the arguments, number of arguments, type of arguments, So all these are actually becoming the signatures of a function. The functions which are having same names and but different signatures are called as overloaded functions. So when I run this particular program, my compiler is not confused. First function, it doesn't take any argument, so it goes and prints a equal to 1. Second function, it prints a equal to 9. It is confused if at all I don't give here, for example, if I make this particular function as equal to 1. Now it is confused because this particular function can call the first version also, can call the second version also, because if you don't pass any argument, it considers the argument value as 1. So this creates a confusion, and the compiler says I'm ambiguous state. I'm in an ambiguous state. See, it's telling I'm ambiguous state. Why? Because first one doesn't take any argument. It's okay. But second one takes an argument, and if the user doesn't pass any argument, it takes the value as 1. So this particular one function first call can either go to the first function or can go to the second function. So that creates a confusion. So these kinds of errors have to be avoided. But now there is no confusion if I remove the default value. So if I remove the default value, this one takes no argument, so it goes here. This one takes exactly one argument, the second one, so it goes to the second call. So this way of running doesn't create any error. So be careful in creating ambiguous state to the compiler. So this is called function overloading. Fine. Okay, where functions have same name but different signatures. So let me write the definition here. Function overloading. So what do you mean by that? Functions with same name but different signatures. So what do you mean by signatures? It can be return type, type of arguments, number of arguments, or sequence of arguments. So all these are actually called as signatures of a function. So all these are actually called as signatures of a function. Function should have same name but different signatures. We call it as function overloading. So now we'll look into a concept of function overriding, and then we'll also look into a concept of operator overloading. I'll take through another screen. Run the codes and then work on these examples. Mute the video and then run a particular piece of code and then go for the next concept. I know I've taken all the concepts of object orientation in a single video, but make sure individual concept you run, you understand the output, and then you go to the next concept. Instead of looking into the video at a one stretch, run individual pieces of code by yourself, understand the output. In case of any queries or any ambiguity in understanding the output, you can always write to my email address, which I'll be sharing at the end of the video, or you can put it in the comment section where I can actually solve that. Fine. There may be some here and there in the words which I actually tell while I'm speaking, but don't get into a confused state. Understand the concepts which are illustrated through coding, and then get back to me in case of any queries if you cannot understand the piece of code which I've actually executed. Okay. Coming into operator overloading, consider I have a class A. Fine. Okay. And then in the class A, let me have a public member. Okay. Let me have a public member X. Okay. So let me have a public member X, which I've given it as okay, 1. Or let me have it an integer, which is 1. Okay. Let me take it through a constructor, the value for that. So let me have a constructor which is taking an argument A equal to 1. So that is defaulted. So I'll make X equal to A. Okay. So I just have a class A which is having a member X. Fine. Okay. And then we'll have another, we'll have it like this. Now see here, I'll show you here. Int. Let me take a comma b. There are two integer variables. I'll take a equal to 1 and I'll take b is equal to 2. So let me display C out a plus b. What is the answer? Fine. So you can see here a plus b. So I can write a plus b and then. So I'll be getting the answer. I have not used the class. So you can see here there is a class which I have written, but I've never used that particular class. I've just written two integer variables a and b, and I'm adding those two and I'm giving the answer. So you can see here 3. But assume that I have two objects of a class. So a1 comma a2. So I'll give values to the parameters also, that is constructors. So a, and then I'll create a2 which is having 4. So now what I have to do is likewise I did a plus b here. So I also want the answer for what happens if I add two objects a1 and a2. So can I add a1 plus a2? So if I add a1 plus a2, I should get the answer as 4 plus 3, 7. I should add the data members of it. So data member is x. So once a1 is having x and a2 is having x. a1's x is 3, a2's x is 4. So I should get b 7. So can I do this? I cannot do it. It throws an error. So see here, what is the error it actually throws? See, it throws a lots of explanation. What explanation it is giving is arithmetic operation is only defined on numbers. Arithmetic operators are not defined on objects. That is what it is telling here. It is telling that a is an object, a is a class, and a1 is an object of the class, and you're trying to add two objects. So my arithmetic operation is not defined on objects, it's only defined on numbers. Then how will we rectify this problem? So what I should do for rectifying this problem is I should overload the plus operator. So how will I doing that is I should overload and get the answer as a. So I'll be writing a operator. So which operator? I'm overloading plus operator. So I want two variables of a. So I'll be writing a. So ampersand a1 comma a ampersand a2. Okay. And then I'll be writing resultant a I want. So r. Sorry. I'll be using r as an object of a. So I'll be writing r dot x is equal to a1 dot x plus a2 dot x, and then I should return r. Simple. This procedure is called operator overloading. Which operator? Plus operator. So I'm telling my computer, don't get confused if I add two objects. So if I'm adding two objects, then you should add like this. You should add their x value and give the answer in r. So if I write like this and if I run this program, now this error is not coming. So we'll run this particular second piece of code. Okay, 1 second. So we'll see what's the error which is actually coming here. Okay. So it is an error because of C out. Yeah. Return. 1 second. Okay, so it is a constant member. So I should be using a const a ampersand a1 and then const a8. So this is what is a concept of operator overloading. So what I'm doing here in operator overloading is I'm using a keyword which is called as operator, and which operator I want to overload. I want to actually overload the plus operator. So what do I want to overload and why do I want to overload? So what I'm telling here is plus is only defined on integers. Plus is only defined on integers. So as you can see here, a plus b will give me the answer. For example, if I comment this line, and if I run this particular piece of code, I'm getting the answer. But why am I not getting the answer when I do a1 plus a2? So when I'm actually doing a1 plus a2, when I'm doing this, why am I not getting the output? So how will I solve this? I have to go for overloading the operator. Clear, right? So what I'll do here is, okay, it is overloading the operator plus. So I don't know, const keywords. And this particular concept, what I've used ampersand, it is called referencing. So I'm using the object as a reference. I'm getting the objects as a reference. So when I write a1 plus a2, so when I'm writing a1 plus a2, so I'm getting the answer. So what I'll do here is I'll create a3, and then I'll do a3 is equal to a1 plus a2. So we'll do that. So I'll be printing the answer in a3. Fine. Okay. So what did I do? I did my a3, that is a new object, is equal to a1 plus a2 without operator overloading. So if I have not written this particular code, so I'll comment this and I'll show you the error once, so that I'll uncomment and I'll run once again to solve the error. So see here, this is operator overloading. So what did I do? I'm adding the x of both a1 and a2 and I'm storing that x in R. So I want R, which is of type A, to hold the answer. So that's why I've declared R, which is of type A. So I've named it as A3, which is an object of A, which can hold the answer, and I'm printing the answer. Fine. So A1 plus A2 should give me the answer. It should give me the answer 7. But I've commented it. So we'll see the error and then we'll uncomment it so that we can solve it. So see the error. I cannot do plus operation. I cannot do a1 plus a2. Now I'll uncomment this particular block and that error is gone. Fine, I've uncommented it. So I've added a1 plus a2. Still that line is remaining here. So let me run this. So let me run this particular code. A3 is equal to a1 plus a2. And then I'm printing a3 is x. Fine. So it should print a3 is x. So I had made that mistake, so it was not showing. So you can see here, a1 plus a2 is equal to 7. So this is called operator overloading. What did I do? I added a1's x and a2's x, and I'm storing it in a3's x, and I'm finally printing a3's x. So I have defined plus operation on a1 and a2, that is objects, after operator overloading. So this code is after operator overloading. And if you see here, there are many operators which I can overload. For example, I can print here a plus b, directly it was giving answer. But if I directly print a1 plus a2, it was not giving me an answer. Why? Because I have not overloaded the extraction operator. I've only overloaded the insertion operator. So I can also go for overloading the extraction operator. So how I can actually overload the extraction operator is I should be writing O string, and the operator to be overloaded in O stream is this particular operator. So I'll be writing O stream, one object O is I'll write, and then A is object reference. So I'll write A1. Okay. So here I'll be writing OS, and then I should be printing its X. So I'll be just writing A1 dot X. then endl. So I'll be just writing a1.x and then endl. OStream operator. OStream is actually a class which has defined these insertion operator. Fine. So let me run this particular code. So I'm getting the answer for this line. So now I have to convert this line to cout. So what happens if I directly give a1? A1 is an object. So I'll comment this particular function overloading for insertion operator. So you can see here directly I'm writing a cout statement. I want to print the object. So if you can see here, this line actually now creates an error. So it's an error without overloading extraction insertion operator. So it was an error without overloading the insertion operator. So we'll see the error, what it is telling. See here, error. So that's an error. So it is telling that this operator is not defined to print objects. This particular operator, that is cout insertion operator, is only defined to print numbers and basic data types, strings, float, double, integer, character, and all. It's not defined to run objects. So what did I do? I have to use OStream class, and then I'll run this particular code. Okay, so here I should be writing return statement. So return was OStream object. Okay, it is a OStream class. So I'll be writing a reference to OStream class. Understand the errors, and then you have to be solving it. And it is a reference to OStream class. So you can see here it is printing 3. 3 got printed. So why 3? Because A1's value is 3. So in the same way, I can also print without overloading, it is an error. With the overloading, it's not an error. So I can also print A2 now. So it should print 4. So if I print here, I'll be writing inside, I'll write A1. Fine. Okay. And then here I'll write A2 so that we'll understand the code. So this is operator overloading in C++. Very interesting pieces of code. Very interesting pieces of code here. Okay, we'll be running A1 is 3. So that is because of the constructor which has invoked and given the x as 3. And we are having A2 which is having a constructor invoked and giving the value 4. So I'm directly printing A1 and A2. It is telling A1 equal to 3, A2 equal to 3. Now if I write the cout statement, A1 plus A2, and then I can directly write A1 plus A2. So this will give me the answer 7. One second. Small mistake which we have done here. Okay, it is not A1 plus A2, it is A3 actually, because the answer is stored in A3. So if you see here, I should get 7 as an answer. See, 7. 2 places I'm getting 7. One place I've used A3.x. However, it is a number. A3.x is a number. So no problem in writing like that. But now A3 is not a number. A3 is actually an object. Directly I'm printing an object. So what I have done, I've actually used operator overloading for overloading plus also, and for overloading cout statement also. When I overload cout statement, what happens is it was not defined to print objects, but now it goes for printing objects also. So this concept is called polymorphism in C++. One is function overloading, another is operator overloading. So there are very interesting concepts of operator overloading. I'll be showing that in another video on separately on operator overloading. So where we can see different kinds of operators being overloaded. So for this example of polymorphism, you just have to understand that I have overloaded two operators. One is plus and other is a insertion operator. Why I have overloaded plus? Because plus was working only on numbers. Now I made it to work on objects. So you can see here, a1 plus a2, it is working on objects. So I overloaded the plus operator. I made plus operator not only work on numbers, also to work on objects. And cout was working only on basic data types like strings, integers, numbers, float, double, character, and all. But cout was not working to print the objects. But since I have used operator overloading, I've overloaded the insertion operator also. You can see here. This is called overloading. So I'll write here overloading insertion operator. So I have overloaded the insertion operator, which has made me to change my cout syntax also. My cout was not able to print objects. My cout is now able to print objects only after I've overloaded the insertion operator. So you can overload all the operators in C++ except four operators: dot operator, ternary operator, scope resolution operator, and size of operator. So except these four operators, all the operators in C++ can be overloaded. Okay, so this is your second kind of polymorphism. So we'll come back to the third kind of polymorphism. Fine. So the last of its kind will come. So I'll show the last kind of polymorphism in one of the inheritance concept itself, where we have gone for basic level of inheritance. Fine. I've shared multiple screens here. So I'm running out of screen. So I'll show it in a screen which we have earlier illustrated the inheritance concept. Okay. Okay, let me take a basic inheritance example and show you the things there. Okay, so take this example where I have a class A and class B, which actually inherits the features of A. So assume that in A, I'm having certain data members, public data members, that is int, I'll be writing x equal to 3. Fine. Okay, and here I'll be writing int y equal to 5. So here I'll be having a function called as void show. I've written void show, and then I'll be writing cout show of a. Simple. I'll not write anything else. I'll just write end l. So void show of a. Okay, that's enough. And we'll remove this constructor. I don't want this particular constructor here now. And then here I'll have another function void show, and then I'll just write cout show of b. I'll write show of b. Fine. So there is show of a and then show of b. Only two functions. So b has inherited from a. So b has its own features also and also features of a. Now it is in a confusion state. Why? B has already a function called show, and b also has taken another feature which is having a same function show. So now when I call b1 dot show, when I call b1 dot show, will it be showing its show or will it show the A's show? Because it's having two show functions now. One is the show function which belongs to itself. Another is a show function which belongs to class A, since B inherits A. So what happens is, in this case, we call it as overriding. Function overriding. What do you mean by overriding? Functions with same name and signature. So if you see this function void show, not only name, the signature is also same. Overriding. Functions with same name and signatures coming across parent and child classes. So you can see here, a parent and child are having the same function called show. Now, when I create an object of child and call show, which show will be called? It goes for overriding and it calls the show of child. So I'll run this and I'll show you. So you can see here, show of B. Though it can also call show of A, but it has called show of B. So now if I create object of A and call show. So if I create object of A1, and if I call A1 dot show, this obviously calls A's show. Why? Because A does not derive B. So A only knows one show. So I'll call this. So you will be getting show of A. So you can see here. First line is because of B1 dot show. So it is telling B of show of B, and second line is show of A because of A1 dot show. Now this is called overriding. So all these kinds of polymorphism, what we have seen is called as compile time polymorphism. Means while writing the code only, I know what kind of output will come, which function will be called. So now see a special kind, what I can do, I'll have a pointer to the object of A, that is A2, and I'll create an object of B, that is B2. And what I'll do is I'll make my A2 is equal to referencing the B2. So listen carefully, little bit complex concept, which we go for runtime polymorphism. And what I'll do here is I'll make this function as virtual. Fine. Now, when I do this as virtual function, when I do my function of A, not function of B, function of parent class. So when I make my function of parent class as virtual, if I call A2, and since I've used a pointer, I should be calling A2 dot show. Okay. So see here, I'll comment these two shows. I don't want these two lines. So what I'll do here is I'll comment all of them till here because we don't want that concept now. Okay. See here, it is showing show of B, but I called it through object of A, but it is calling show of B. That is called as runtime polymorphism. This is called runtime polymorphism or dynamic binding. We call it as dynamic binding. Very important when you do certain projects where a parent class is being given access to the members of a child class by making the object of child class reference to the pointer of the parent class. So you can see here there is a pointer to a parent class object and there is a child class reference. B2 is actually a child class. But if I remove this virtual keyword, so if I remove this virtual keyword, so see here, if I remove this virtual keyword and if I run this particular program, you can see here it is telling show of A because it gives preference to its own function. A2 is an object of A, so it gives preference to its own function. But if I write virtual, it nullifies the effect and it makes it go for dynamic binding during runtime and call the method of its child. So you can see here if I run virtual, you can see it is telling show of B. So this is called runtime polymorphism, dynamic binding. So I have used the keyword virtual. Use virtual keyword. So we have seen multiple uses of this keyword virtual, where virtual can be used for dynamic binding. That is runtime polymorphism. When parent and child are having the same functions, how to make the parent object called the child's function by referencing to the child object. So that concept is called runtime polymorphism. And what is compile time polymorphism in overriding, where both parent and child are having their own objects, but since the functions are same in both parent and child, parent will call its own show and child will call its own show. This is called function overriding, compile time. So clear, right? This is compile time. So I'll write here. It is compile time. It's not during runtime. It's clearly predictable. Clear, right? B1 show calls its own show and A1 calls its own show. But here it is not the case. If I've written it as a virtual function, then A1 goes for calling the child's method. So this is during runtime. It's having dynamic dispatch also, we call this process has. So this is called dynamic binding. So we have covered all the concepts of polymorphism, inheritance, abstraction, and encapsulation in C++. Much of the concepts you have seen in this particular video sessions. I would like you to run these codes individually. So once you go through the encapsulation concept, what you can do is run the pieces of code and then go to the next concept. Don't look into this video in a stretch and try for coding, because lots of coding snippets we have actually illustrated in this video session. So better go for bit by bit executing, and then any queries write to this particular mail. Understand the errors and feel free to ping me with queries or suggestions also. Okay. Feel free to give suggestions also to improve or enhance the video tutorials, or you can also ping me with the queries which I could answer on object-oriented concepts of C++. So what we have seen in object-oriented concepts of C++ is encapsulation, abstraction, and then inheritance, and then polymorphism. Encapsulation is where you keep data and operations together as a single unit. When I tell class, it's having data members also, member functions also. They are bounded as a single unit. So that is encapsulation. What do you mean by abstraction? Just showing you the interfacing. That is just showing you what is the output, what output you will get when you give this input. How it gives me the output, that is hidden actually. For example, cout. I know it will display the answer. How it is displaying, who has written cout, I don't know. It's in the header file. So this is called abstraction. And in object orientation, how do we have abstraction? When we make the access specifier as protected or private. So protected and private members cannot be directly used by external entities. However, protected members can be used by child classes, but private members cannot be used by child classes also. Protected members can be used by child classes, but private members cannot be used by any other than the class itself. So this illustrates the concept of abstraction in classes. Coming to inheritance, where you can inherit the features of another class. Different kinds of inheritance based on from how many classes you inherited, how many levels of you inherit, how many of them inherit from you, and how do you combine different kinds of inheritance we have seen in different code snippets. And finally, into polymorphism. Three main types of polymorphism: function overloading, function overriding, operator overloading. And in overriding, we have runtime overriding and compile time overriding. So function overloading is function with same name and different signatures. Operator overloading, as you know, operators are meant to be working on data types. But when we ask them to work on objects, it throws an error. So I need to overload the operators and make them work on objects. So that is called operator overloading. Coming to overriding, when it comes to parent and child, when they have same functions, which function to be called? It's called overriding concept. So if you are not using dynamic method dispatch, it actually calls its own scope function or its own scope attribute. For example, child will call its own show and parent will call its own show in this example. But if I go for dynamic method dispatch, then the parent can call the member function of a child by referencing to the object of child. So this particular concept is called runtime polymorphism or dynamic method dispatch or dynamic binding. Okay, so these were the concepts which we have seen in today's session. Feel free to give suggestions and queries, and then see you in the next session of C++. Thank you.